listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
All right, Halloween is upon us, guys, and here on the Straight to Video podcast, I wanted to get just one more tip of the hat to my favorite time of the year. So I decided to check back in with Rayen Belchere, who is an amazing singer-songwriter who has his band Early Ray and was previously the bass player for Wednesday 13, but also Bourbon Crow 2. Just to learn all about his experiences of growing up in the USA and share some fun stories with us. I originally spoke to Rayen back on episode 4, I believe, of this podcast when it was just starting out, and it remains one of my favourite chats, so I knew he would be ideal for this kind of stuff. Not only does he have a great music background and a kid of the 80s, but he's a massive movie buff and has his own Nerd Locations project, finding out movie locations all over the US, which we touch on a little in this talk. Along the way, we chat about our first horror films, Halloween costumes, haunted houses, and a heck of a lot more in a really great talk. And Rayen also drops some exclusive new music news on us too, so listen out for that. Before we dive in, as always, shout out to my buddies over at Dead Skull Coffee. If you want to pick up some mighty fine ground or full bean coffee with a real rock and roll attitude, then look no further than Dead Skull Coffee, where you can grab 15% off your order by simply adding the promo code STV on checkout over at deadskullcoffee.co.uk. And continuing with the Halloween theme and following the straight-to-video cover of Trick or Treat from the 1986 movie of the same name, myself and Andrew Haunt, who is the author of the great book VHS Ate My Brain, well, we both got together recently to chat all about the Trick or Treat horror movie, and that is available as a bonus podcast over on the Straight to Video Patreon, which you can find out all about over at patreon.com/STVpod. Okay, back to my chat with Rayen. I think you'll hear what fun we had with this talk. It was a blast to hook up again after a year or so, and hopefully it'll bring back some Halloween memories for you too. Be sure to look up Rayen online. Simply type in Rayen Belchere in Google and all his social medias will come up, along with Spotify and Amazon Music links, so there's plenty to dive into. But in the meantime, enjoy my straight-to-video Halloween chat with Rayen Belchere.
Can you feel the cold in the air? Feel the frost in your hair? Just lie down on your back. We'll see our breath in the stars, jump from Pluto onto Mars. Be my Sally, I'll be your Jack, and I've been trying to get back to this dream. If you'll be my 1031, I'll be your Halloween.
Yeah, man. It's pretty late there, huh?
Just after 10 p.m., so I'm normally fast asleep by now.
What's happened to your rock and roll? You're supposed to be up to at least 3 a.m.
Mate, that went about 3 years ago, I think, if not longer.
I'm slowly dialing it back, so I'm right there with you, man. I appreciate you inviting me back on the show. It looks like you've been doing really well with it. The key is just constant content, man. You know, somebody who might hate my interview will love your next one, and vice versa. You seem to keep it cool and fresh, but you also seem to have some really neat guests. So congratulations. I think it's one of the more known ones in this little circle that we're in.
Wow, I appreciate that. Yeah, you have no idea of what response it's getting. You have your core people. You're probably the same with your movie one. You have regular people who interact with you all the time, but you don't know if it's outside that bubble or not. It's weird.
Sorry, my dog's barking.
Gotta have a dog on there.
She's mad because I have a little barrier where she can't cross. Waffles, stop. I named my dog Waffles after Stranger Things.
Oh, nice.
Waffles. You've seen Stranger Things, right?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
That's how much of a nerd I am.
So how you been doing? You been keeping all right?
Well, I've had a pretty wild year, just to be completely honest with you. But I've maintained, I lost my mom last November, but that was to be expected, but I'm a good old boy that grew up a mama's boy, so it was a pretty tough loss.
I bet. Oh, man. Sorry to hear that.
But I did put together a record for her that's coming out on November the 7th everywhere. So if you type in Rayen Belchere on November the 7th, there's a record called Stages with 2 big pumpkin heads carved out. You'll see people wearing pumpkin heads. That's the cover. So.
Oh, sweet, man.
So that's something new to promote, and this is the first time I'm actually telling anyone about it. So your show has got the exclusive.
Oh, I appreciate that.
November 7th, my kind of Southern gospel grief record for my mom will drop. And I recorded that with Matt Thorne from Rough Cut, who's fantastic. And he always gets the best sounds out of me. So that's my latest project. Is through a lot of pain and struggle, I've created a cool record that I'm pretty proud of. So,
oh wow, did it all come together like super fast after everything that happened, like out of nowhere? Or
not really, because you really do go through the stages of grief. The record's called Stages. It's got 7 songs, which is 7 stages of grief. You really do go through those stages. But I knew at a certain point, as a writer, you can always just pick up a guitar and write. But sometimes you're almost forced to grab the guitar and write, like it's coming out of you.
Yeah.
And I knew that moment would come, and it started around July, August. And then I wanted to make it 7 songs, which represented her favorite number, 7 stages of grief. She passed on the 7th. So it just all was symbolically kind of linked up right. And I hit up Matt and he was like, yeah, fly on out. So I flew out there, and every one of them are 1 takes.
Wow.
First thing I played into the microphone. So I did 7 songs for her. I did a cover of Tom Petty, Good to Be King. That's on SoundCloud right now. That was cool. Stephen Piercy from Rat reposted it, which made my whole year. I thought that was awesome.
Dude. So is it just you vocal and guitar, or did you and Matt add some other things on top of it?
No, it was a total tribute record to her. And it was just me and the guitar and, the emotions and what I wanted to say. It's a pretty dark record. Like if you want to be in a good mood, I would probably say skip that record. But if you're going through something, it might give you a little bit of a, hey man, I'm not alone in this.
That's cool that you were able to put that grief into something creative and also a tribute as well. That's really sweet.
I don't know who originally said this. Somebody said that the best art comes through pain. And, it's really true. Whenever I'm just happy, I rarely write much of anything. But if I'm going through something, I want to just pour it out. So, there is a silver lining to everything. And I think this record is cool, but I want to chat with you, man. I know you have some Halloween themed stuff coming up. We're talking about some horror movies.
Oh yeah, always up for that, man. You're the perfect candidate for all that kind of stuff. Just some nostalgic horror memories.
I want to ask you your thoughts on something real quick.
Okay.
Squid Game. What did you think of Squid Game?
I'm like 4 episodes in so far. I got to wrap it up, but I'm trying to watch it with the wife.
Okay, I watched it.
We're kind of pacing ourselves.
I don't know if it's considered horror or that part of that genre, but it was definitely a lot better than I expected. It lived up to the hype. I haven't seen Halloween Kills either, so
no, me neither.
But I've heard mixed reviews on it, and mostly not good.
Yeah, me too. I was like all excited to go watch it, and then the reviews started dropping in from people who I like and respect. I'm like, oh dang.
Here's what I want to know. Tell me this: how do you mess up a Michael Myers or a Jason movie? Put the guy in the mask. Put some pretty girls and teenagers who are on trick-or-treating and have them kill them, and have somebody at the end show up with Jamie Lee Curtis and supposedly kill him. Everyone loves that. It's not just fan service. Nobody thinks that character is going to have some arc bridge where he becomes something else. So to mess up a Halloween movie is almost a feat of its own,
We'll see. I'll go in wanting to enjoy it.
To be fair, I'll watch it as well. But when I hear they mess up such an easy movie, it's like Friday 13th was one of the only remakes I really thought kind of got it right. They took it to the woods, had some teenagers camping out, chased them down and killed them. And somebody at the end supposedly killed Jason. That's how it works. Just give me another version of that every 2 years and everybody's happy.
Just shot super nice. Looks like it's done modern.
Yeah, come up with some creative ways for Jason to do his thing and, whatever. But when they start putting pop stars like Justin Bieber or LL Cool J in horror movies, I give up.
Or Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg's cropped up a few times, right?
And I like all those guys as artists, but it's like, what are you doing in a Halloween movie? Like, come on, man. So let's talk what you want to talk about, man.
Well, I've had a fascination with Halloween since like the early 80s, since first time I went to the USA and spent my first Halloween there. I think it was, let me get the year right. Well, I know it was early 80s, so it was probably around 81, 82. And I'd never seen Halloween before in this kind of context. And to be honest, 40 years later, the UK is still trying to catch up. So I'm like, we need it to what it was when I saw it several decades ago in the USA. So I always love speaking to people about their Halloween memories, especially from the USA. So I was just wondering what some of your earliest Halloween memories were in South Carolina. Do you remember some of the first times you went trick-or-treating?
Oh, man. I was born actually on the day Star Wars came out, so I'm 44. And when I was a kid, I grew up in a real neighborhood where the houses were right beside each other. And we all went trick-or-treating on the night. Didn't matter which night it was. was, I would say probably 75% of the people participated and gave out candy. And when we were done, we would change clothes and dress into something and stand beside the tree and jump scare little kids. And they all loved it. They knew it. And I just had the best Halloween memories. I remember one Halloween, and I told Alice Cooper this story. I'm sure he doesn't remember it, but I told him when we played with them. We played with Alice on Halloween in 2005 in Anaheim in the Wednesday 13 band. And one Halloween, I specifically remember going to school the next day because I couldn't wash it off. So I reapplied his makeup so people would think I did it on purpose. Like, oh, he's just celebrating Halloween still, instead of having half Alice Cooper face. And he had a good laugh for that. That was a good memory. I'll show you another. This movie was a good memory for me. Halloween 4.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure. Let's see. When did Halloween 4 come out? 80. I was still a kid when it came out.
87, 88, something like that.
So like 9, 10, 11 when that came out. That was a good memory for me. I'm looking around. I have a bunch of nerd stuff.
Who signed that one?
Jamie.
Danielle Harris.
Really sweet girl. Really nice to the fans. And she always takes time in the school. I've met her a couple of times at the conventions. But she asked me how big or small I wanted it. And I told her, I'm like, you don't realize this, but when I was 10, you were my girlfriend. And she goes, she laughed. And she goes, that's not the first time I've heard that. I'm like, well, I'm glad you finally know that my 10-year-old dated you for a whole year. And it's so she goes, so I get the marquee. I said, you take up the whole thing. And she made a really nice signature.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So Danielle Harris, shout out to Danielle Harris. If anybody has a chance to meet her, she's totally worth it.
I think she's coming to the UK next year. She was supposed to come this year, but because of everything that happened, it all got cancelled. So they've rescheduled it for next year. So I'd love to meet her because the Halloween films are great, but everything she's done since, because she was in the Rob Zombie Halloween, right?
Well, I'm in the minority of people that's not the biggest fan of that, but I thought she was probably the highlight of that film. But yeah, she came back for that film. I think she's done some other horror stuff, and she does conventions. And the reality is, and I think even she is okay with this, the portrayal of Jamie is probably what everybody's going to know her for. You know, she does these really great cosplay photo ops where she dresses in the clown costume with the mask on. And I want to get that so bad. That's such a cool cosplay photo op. But I just think that, you know, she's like Jamie Lee Curtis in a lot of ways. She paid a lot of tribute to being part of that franchise.
I think it's great when people kind of realize, yes, this is what I'm going to be known for. So I'm just going to own it. Anything else is a bonus. I'm lucky to get that one shot to do that. So anything else is great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in Hollywood, people who were in like Halloween 8, 9, 10, whatever, it's just a notch on their resume. But Danielle Harris, you know, she seems to really take ownership. Like, I'm Jamie. To me, I will argue that this is the best Halloween, even though I know number 1 and 2 and 3 are the holy grails. But just from a cinematography point of view, from an acting point of view, from a directing point of view, having the original actors, Donald Pleasance, Michael looking badass, I think they got it completely right with Halloween 4. That's just my opinion. People probably will roast me over that, but that's okay.
I got to go back and revisit it. I watched 4 and 5 a few years ago because I'm in that area of number 3 is my favorite, but it's a standalone. So it's kind of a totally different thing, but I love it.
3 was like that movie I remember watching as a kid going, what the F is this? The fuck is this movie doing? Like, the only time I saw Michael was on the television commercial. But now looking back, it's so great. The whole film. I wish they would have threw John Carpenter's name on it and called it something else. But at the same time, it's that weird moment in the Halloween franchise that gives it a little teeth, adds some life to it where you go, well, what about 3? So who am I to say? But I enjoy 3 as well. I'll go first 6 or what I live with. So your favorite season of The Witch?
Mm-hmm. Because I think that was probably the first one I saw. So I judged it just 100% on face value, didn't know anything about the Michael Myers legacy, if you want to call it. And it just creeped the hell out of me. And it still does to this day. It's so iconic and just captures that Halloween vibe. It's just 100% Halloween just for that alone. I love it and just love revisiting it.
I may have to revisit that tonight. I have a Blu-ray, I think, of it somewhere I picked up along the line. Let me ask you this. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What's your favorite? What do you think of that?
I love it. And that's a weird thing for us in the UK because that film was banned for well into...
Really?
I'm going to say banned until the 90s.
Wow.
Or at least the very late 80s. So I didn't get to see that until I was in the States and I rented it. Like, I'm going to do it. It felt dangerous renting this film that I couldn't see in the UK. And I loved it, 1 and 2. Even 2, which is like very comedic and very funny in places, that was banned as well. That never got a UK release until like way on. So just to see them films, it was like, oh, this is dangerous. And I was like 15, 16. It felt a bit dirty putting it in. I love the remake. I thought the Texas Chainsaw remake was great.
The guy who plays Leatherface in the remake is a big Wednesday 13 fan. And so we'd run into him a lot. His name's Andrew something. Totally nice guy. That movie, the original, when I was a kid, the very first video store in my town was not a Blockbuster. It was a mom and pop store. And my dad went down there and just said, whatever he wants to rent it to him. You know, clearly they had the saloon doors that would go through the X-rated part, but I didn't go over. I just rented horror movies.
And wrestling tapes.
I did rent wrestling, SummerSlam and, you know, that kind of stuff, WrestleMania. But I rented Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I was probably 7 or 8, and I took it home. It traumatized me. Still to this day, I think it's the perfect horror film. From start to end, it's the perfect horror movie. My opinion. The sequel's okay on its own. We all know it doesn't really represent the first one. The remake was cool. It kind of felt current at the time. But that first one, that was pure imagination and guts and balls to make that movie. Because I didn't know it was banned over there. I had no idea. Did they ban all horror movies or was it just that one?
There was a whole bunch of them in the early 80s, which were deemed video nasties. So the censors over here just went crazy. Anything with any gore. I can't remember. There's a documentary out about it, but probably like a dozen films which were considered video nasties. Even Evil Dead, that was banned for quite some time. And Evil Dead's considered the video nasty in the UK.
Really?
Yeah. That was released at the cinema and VHS at the same time. So it lasted for a while until the censors came in and just like wiped the slate clean with so many films. Crazy over here.
But Halloween memories, my last 2 years ago when I got married, me and my wife spent Halloween in Shibuya, Japan.
Dude, wow.
10,000, 20,000, 30. I don't know. There was more people than I could see in that crossing, all dressed up and crossing. And I have video of it I'm going to post. That was wild. Opening for Alice Cooper on Halloween was a dream come true. Dressing up like him when I was a kid, going to see the scary movies. I remember, I'm sure this was banned over there. When I was a kid in middle school, we all snuck out, watched the midnight screening of Faces of Death.
Oh, man.
Did you have that over there?
We had that, yeah. That was just a dodgy tape what someone was handing around. I don't think you could ever rent it in the stores. I never saw it anyway until later years. But yeah, somebody always had a really bad copy of it.
They would show it here at midnight before Halloween. That was kind of a tradition that lasted a few years. So that kind of thing. I had a pretty, go to haunted houses. Were haunted houses like a big thing over there?
Are we talking like what's become like the mazes and stuff now? Or did you have like a haunted house in your neighborhood which you used to dare each other to go to?
We used to have a haunted asylum. Literally, you would go start at one end, and if you could make it to the other end, there'd be people on the outside with a flashlight to see if you made it. And the dare was like, it was probably 100 yards, but to walk from one end to the other. And we did that every year. We had a place called Crybaby Bridge that was supposedly haunted. True story that a woman drove off of it with her kid. It was an accident, but the urban legend is that in October, you can hear the baby crying at midnight. So we did that kind of stuff. But we also had the actual haunted houses where people would upfit a warehouse with a guy chasing you with a chainsaw.
When did they start? Is that something that's always been going?
Since I can remember, we've always had that.
You guys were spoiled.
We are, I feel. Yeah, we are. We definitely are.
I remember that first Halloween I was in the States. I'll have to check what year it was. It was I do know it was the year that the movie Dark Night of the Scarecrow came out. That was a TV movie and it was having the network premiere on the TV. So I always remember that being a big deal. I had to confirm with my sister that I always had it in my head that in the mall, the local mall, they had like a haunted house, haunted maze kind of thing. It's like a few years ago, I said to her, did I make this up? And she's like, no, they did have it. And I can remember this tall guy like guided us through and he said, who's going to hold my hand? And he had like this like really gory glove on it. And I remember volunteering to hold his hand to go through. I was like, yes, I'll do it. I'm brave enough to walk through with this like weird dude. That's the only thing I can remember about it. But yeah, it was a thing. So what did you have? Was they in malls or just like you say, like a warehouse kind of thing?
We actually had a little bit of everything. That we had big houses that turned into haunted houses. We had like kind of warehouses, retail space. Some people had corn mazes where you go out into like the children of the corn. They would cut out mazes for you to run through. And those have kind of died down a little bit. They're still around, but the biggest ones now are like Universal Hollywood Horror Nights, which I'm sure you've seen some videos on that. They chase you around with the chainsaws. You run through the Psycho House and the Bates Motel. And I got to do that back in 2015. That was a really cool thing. That's kind of taken over. We have where I live, we have an amusement park called Carowinds, which they change to Scarowinds every year. And they have a bunch of mazes and stuff. But yeah, you could still, where I live, you could pay your $5 or $10, get on a haunted hayride, and get on a hayride with a horse drawing you to the middle of a cornfield.
Superb.
And you go through this thing that's like the purge. There are some here in this country that make you sign a waiver. Like, if you can survive this without chickening out, you get this, that exists here too. So yeah, I think we've taken Halloween about as far as we can take it.
There's a movie which I try and watch every year. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if it's called the same thing in the States. Over here, it's called Houses of Halloween, or in the States, it might be called The Houses October Built.
Yeah.
And it's all about, it's like a found footage thing where they try and go around America to find the scariest Halloween haunts, and they find this one that's like takes it to the next level. But that's a great film, that one is.
So where you are, what is like where I'm at, and it could be the same, where I'm at, Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason, Leatherface are the cornerstones of horror. What about where you're at?
It's the same. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I mean, I think the UK's always had a fixation to like all the old Hammer horror movies, because that's where a lot of them were made over here. What's the other one? It's Hammer Horror, and well, you had all the Universal monsters and all that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, all the black and white stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, we're still fascinated with all the 80s slasher stuff. Yeah, we love it over here.
Yeah, that was my era. 80s slasher, 70s slasher. I got into the 90s a little bit. Universal horror stuff, I like it, but when I was a kid, it didn't scare me the way Jason scared me.
What was your entry-level movie? Or did you just go in with Texas Chainsaw straight away?
Well, I did Texas Chainsaw right away, and it scared me to the point where I had to rent it again the next week to see if I saw what I really thought I saw. And then I went and saw Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D at the movie theater, and I ran to the bathroom for all the kill scenes because I was so scared to see them. And after that, I just became addicted to it. I thought I saw Jason in the neighborhood. I'm like, there he is. The movie that probably traumatized me the most, and this will surprise you, besides Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was very traumatizing. But the original It series on television, when I was a kid, that traumatized me like you wouldn't believe. I rode my skateboard to the bus stop in the middle of the road. I wouldn't even get near the drainage ditch. I wouldn't even get close to the ditch anymore.
Something about those Stephen King TV movies. I was the same with Salem's Lot. Classic.
Oh, yeah. Is that the movie that got you?
That's one of the early ones. I'm trying to think some of the early films which I saw. There was the double hit combo of Evil Dead and Evil Speak. I used to go to my grandparents' house every weekend, and my grandma would always rent horror movies. She loved horror films, so she'd like rent anything. Sometimes she'd get some really dubious stuff, which turned out to be like semi-porn films, which she didn't realize. But yeah, we had like Evil Dead, Evil Speak, all that kind of stuff. American Werewolf in London. Everything from those early 80s films. So yeah, we'd just watch anything and everything back then. I always say to people, we could watch the goriest horror film, but as soon as some boobs came on screen, it'd be, close your eyes, close your eyes.
No, that's how the Slumber Party Massacre was. You remember that movie? It's like, is this a porno or a horror movie? I don't really understand, but my 10-year-old self loved it. I actually still look for some of those locations from some of those old horror films like Slumber Party Massacre, and especially all the standards. When I go out to LA, that's kind of my little nerd hobby, is I find those locations. And I forgot my friend Robert took me to some of the Slumber Party houses. And when I was taking a photo, the guy was like, he had no idea he lived in the house from that movie. He was like, yeah, I remember that movie. The guy with the guitar. And it's like, yeah, you live in the house in the movie.
No way.
Like, no way. Yeah, he was tripping out so hard.
What are some of the other cool locations you found with your nerd location stuff? It always blows my mind when I've been out there, and like the Elm Street house is literally just off that main strip. It's crazy.
I actually lived for a long time at 7950 Sunset, right at the corner of Fairfax and Sunset. So I'd walk my dog, this crazy dog, past the Freddy house every day, and then cross the street and get on Orange. You're on the street that was the babysitter house from Halloween. The end of Halloween was literally across the street. And then I lived in Haddonfield and on M Street for quite a while. And that was like such a trippy thing. House 2, I got that location. A lot of horror was filmed on this side of the country in Wilmington, oddly. I got Trick or Treat. The original was Sammy Kerr. I really want to get Halloween 4 2005, which is pretty much still standing. Like LA's tough and New York's tough because everything changes all the time. But those old towns like Children of the Corn, there's still some buildings you can put together in that location as well.
I don't know if I've seen it on your page or someone else, but the Crave Inn from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the old diner. Have you done that one?
I have, but I don't think I ever posted my photos of that. It must have been somebody else. Yeah, it's right near the old Ray's Diner headed toward Venice. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because I've seen you do the Halloween hedge, the hedgerow.
Yeah.
Recreated that. And you met John Carpenter, right?
Mm-hmm. When I was living in LA, I lived right up the street from Barnes & Noble at the Grove. Well, all people who put out anything have obligations to promote. Well, what's easy for some people is to go to the Grove and just go to Barnes & Noble and just get it over with and go home. They don't have to fly nowhere. So they always make that one of their stops. Well, there's so much of it. In LA, like if John Carpenter made an appearance in your hometown or where I'm at now, it would be like big news.
Yeah.
There, I literally woke up and somebody texted me and said, "Hey, are you going to meet John Carpenter today?" I'm like, "Where at?" They were like, "Barnes and Noble." Sure enough, I drove down and at the checkout, I bought the collector's edition of Halloween because he would sign 2 things. You had to buy the comic book that he just wrote. There wasn't even a line. There was maybe, when I say that, there were maybe 20 people in front of me. Waffles, which is not a line. 20 people in front of me. He was a nice guy. He was happy to take a photo. They said no photos. He asked me, he's like, "Want a photo?" I was
like, how cool is that?
Yeah, because I think he saw me taking photos in line of just half my head, with him in the background. But totally nice guy.
I think Hacksaw Jim Duggan did that for me one time. They said no photos and taking a photo, brother. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we are, Jim Duggan. We're taking a photo right now. But yeah, that Halloween is just my favorite time of year all the way around. Not even just because of horror, just everything. It's like the end of summer, the leaves are changing, the food kind of changes, things on TV are a little different. It's just as a new season.
Yeah.
As far as movies go recent horror just hasn't been. When your first experience was a 6-year-old watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it takes a lot to blow your hair back,
Was all your friends into it as well?
No, I was like one of the typical Southern small town America kind of vibe where it's like there's only 2 or 3 of you in the whole city that like those kind of movies. Now in my city, it's a lot bigger. But when I was growing up, there was like 3 of us that liked horror and we were all friends and we would rent the tapes. We'd always switch. I get it Friday. Next Friday, you get this release and then you get this release or we'd watch them all together. But now we get Mad Monster Convention in Charlotte every year with all these big celebrities. I would have walked to that thing when I was a kid with bare feet. But it's just become so crazy that horror now, Charlotte, I live just south of Charlotte, which has become kind of known as like one of the horror cities.
Right. Because of films shot there or just the convention area? Or
conventions? You have the Myers House NC in North Carolina now, which is part of the Mad Monster Convention. Movies being shot there, like love or hate the movie Tusk that Kevin Smith made. But I think it was a genius horror film myself. It was a real throwback, but it was filmed in Charlotte. You have a lot in this kind of part of the country. You have quite a lot. The Conjuring was just a couple hours away. Atlanta, Stranger Things, Halloween 2 was in Atlanta. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. What else was in Atlanta? There was Friday 13th 6 is in Atlanta.
Isn't the whole Walking Dead thing from around that area as well?
Walking Dead is all Atlanta. I tapped out after like season 5. I really did. But I respect it and I really like it. The story just started getting a little too wonky for me. But if you are a Walking Dead fan, you could spend probably 2 weeks and not get half the locations in Atlanta. It's just full of Walking Dead locations.
So Alice Cooper as a costume. What other costumes did you do and where did you get them from?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I don't know if over there, but when we were kids, you could walk into the drugstore and you would go through the rack and they would have the plastic face with the vinyl dressing. I was Kiss one year. Me and my brother traded Gene and Paul. We both were Kiss. I was Alice Cooper, Jason, Michael Myers. I tried to do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I just couldn't get it right. And I was too little to carry a chainsaw. But that's how Southern I am. My dad was like, yeah, you can carry the chainsaw around. It's cool. That's the era I grew up in. They didn't even care. It's like, walk around with a real chainsaw live. But dressed up as all my favorites. I tried to do Freddy, but back then there just wasn't good Freddys. There was the vinyl Freddy. I did that one. What about you? What was your highlights as a kid?
That first one when I was in the USA was Boba Fett. I went to Walgreens and picked out a Boba Fett costume, which I still have to this day. I don't have the mask, but I have the vinyl suit. It's like brand new.
Nice.
The mask just got obliterated because you can't look after them things because they just crack and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I still have the Boba Fett costume. And that was it. Halloween in 1980, whenever, until probably 15 years ago. Just this big gap. I mean, we didn't even have like pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns in the UK until probably 20 years ago. We used to have to carve turnips.
Wow.
Them things are rock hard. If you search for like turnip jack-o'-lanterns on Google, it'll probably bring up some kid in the UK from like 1986 with this like really ropey turnip.
That's so wild to me, but it was just the thing. Like, I didn't know any different. I just knew Halloween was this day we celebrated. And there's this row of movies that are perfect if you like this holiday. But it makes sense, you know, like I was reading a thing about Squid Game that the Motion Picture Association said they would have never released even episode 1 because of the violence in it. Just talking about how Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre being banned in the UK. Now we're watching movies that wouldn't even make it to the movie theater, you know, on streaming. Is censorship still a big thing over there?
Not that I'm aware of. It's nothing you hear of these days. I mean, some of the stuff, I watched that new series of Slasher on Shudder. I don't know if you've watched that or not.
Not yet.
Man, that is gory. That's probably one of the most goriest things I've seen. It's like, dang. So you don't hear much about censorship these days. I'm sure there is to a certain extent, but the stuff you see compared to what got cut in the 80s is just leagues apart. It really is.
We're in that age group where we know where it was kind of like Halloween was still kind of edgy and you were edgelord if you like Halloween, to now it's like, oh yeah, you want gore? It's just like, we'll give you it's like whatever. Like back then, just showing somebody a knife shadow was like, oh, I don't know about that. But now it's like, if you don't show the knife going through their face, it's like, nah, it's not good enough. So I don't know where we made that jump, but we made a jump.
If anything gets cut these days, I've no idea what it is because the amount of stuff they show on screen. And there's always the extra uncut release later down the line anyway.
Well, it's like Terrifier. Did you see Terrifier?
Yeah.
The scene where the girl's hung upside down. It's just like, that would have never made it even on VHS when I was a kid. Never. Texas Chainsaw they were clever in the way they marketed that film. They got it released more as an art film. It was really a horror film because there was really nothing to compare it to. So the people kind of had to roll with it. But Terrifier was just straight gore. You know, and I think they're coming out with a part 2 for that, or they may have already.
I know it's definitely on the cards. I don't think it's out yet, but yeah, it's definitely on the cards. So what kind of stuff did you used to get from the houses? Did everyone just give you the regular candy? Because I know in America, weren't like McDonald's gift vouchers a thing one time, or like small comic books?
Here's how Halloween worked when I was a kid. I grew up in the poorest of poor neighborhoods, but we had people give us like popsicles, like the Kool-Aid unfrozen popsicles. To M&Ms, to like Snicker bars. And then if you had the chance, you would go over to the rich neighborhoods and trick or treat. And in the rich neighborhoods, they would give you the vouchers and the stuff like that. But where I grew up, you were lucky to get a Kit Kat or just whatever the cheapest candy was. But we had people literally give us like apples out of their pantry because, you know, they ran out of stuff. You know, my streets growing up, it was crazy because now you go into the neighborhoods, nobody would even trick or treat in my old neighborhood right now. But back then, the streets were lined with kids all crossing around. And it was just like you see in Halloween 1, all the kids walking around and doing the trick or treating. It was like that when I was a kid. And it's just not like that anymore at all. Then there was a rumor, and I don't know if this was ever a real thing or urban legend, that somebody put like poison or razor blades in candy, and you'd hear all that stuff. And so like for a little while there, my mom would inspect my candy and she'd like make sure there was nothing in it. But nobody cared enough in my neighborhood to poison us.
I know you've not outgrown it, but was there a point where you traded in trick-or-treating to go to like parties or anything like that?
Yes, that's a good question. I would say actual trick-or-treating itself, I probably gave up right around 13-ish, 12, 11, 12, 13-ish. And then I would just celebrate by watching horror films. Then when I got old enough, I'd go to parties or go to festivals. There'd be a lot of Halloween fall festivals around. Go to haunted houses instead of going trick-or-treating. Like the haunted houses thing for me lasted between probably 15 and 25 every year. Instead of going trick-or-treating, we'd go out to a local bar or restaurant or wherever or get some drinks and then go to a haunted house, you know. And then after that, it's more or less I'll go to events where you can get dressed up.
So other than the Alice Cooper gig, which you did with the Wednesday 13 band, have you done any other gigs on Halloween? Has that been something that's happened a few times?
Oh yeah, I've done tons and tons of gigs on Halloween. And you know, in the Wednesday band on Halloween one year, we dressed up like Kiss and we were on Kiss Online. I think it was the Halloween before. All of us wearing Kiss masks. But Halloween is one of those holidays that I have a weird career where I've done everything from the Wednesday band all the way to doing bar shows. And a lot of bar shows, you know, you're the singer, but you also judge the costume contest. And you're like, all right, coming up next, we got the fairy from the Disney and everybody makes some noise, you know. And so you go through the costume contest. And the thing is I'm such a nerd. I don't care if I'm celebrating it like that or if I'm celebrating it opening for Alice Cooper. It's still all the same to me. You know, it really is.
Yeah, the vibe's still there. There is some magic about it. I don't know what it is. Didn't you do something with Bourbon Crow in 2019, the Highway to Hangovers? Because I've seen like a trick-or-treat candy bag online. Was that some kind of promo thing?
Yeah, I before COVID came along, my idea was every year, because Wednesday and I own the rights to Bourbon Crow and everything we do with it. Neither one of us have plans to do any Bourbon Crow stuff, not because we don't want to, just because we live across the country from each other and we both have our own projects. But to keep it going and celebrate it, I thought, hey, why don't once a year we have a little Crow Fest thing where it's not a place, it's not a venue, it's not, you don't have to travel. Crow Fest just means we're going to get you a new piece of merchandise, and on Halloween night at some point play a couple of Bourbon Crow songs. And so I started it out. I thought Crow Fest could last 3 years with the vinyl. And so I was going to make movie posters that were 3D album covers and colored vinyl, and they would come with 3D glasses. Well, I got so many pre-orders that instead of being selfish and like saying, hey, we got all this money, I put it into the packaging to make it even better. So now there's 3 vinyls that came together in a set, all like Halloween movie poster versions, director cuts, and it comes with a little ticket for Halloween night from 2019, like a triple feature. It comes in a trick or treat bag with our name on it, sticker, 3D glasses. Yeah, I definitely went all out. And then the next year comes and COVID's here, and I'm like, well, I can't do a Crow Fest. And then this year kind of came in same situation. Like a lot of our fans are over in the UK and Australia and stuff, and getting mail to those places, it's been hard right now. So
is it something you think you will pick up again at some point? Because that sounds great, man.
Yeah, hopefully, you know, knock on wood, fingers crossed, by next year, things will have worked themselves out and we can get mail all around the world again. And whatever it is, we just started doing a limited piece of merchandise. And what I always do, because I notice when our records sell out, they go from like $20 or $25 to like $125. And so I started keeping back a lot of stock and releasing it a little bit at a time to keep those people at bay in case new fans came along. And I think I got about maybe 30 more sets of that vinyl. And right now I even lowered the price to $40. So you get the 3 set of vinyl with the perks and everything, because I want the fans to have it, because once they sell out, those things are going to be pretty crazy. I might have one I can show you. Actually, I do. Here is one of them 3D album cover. And this was kind of Tarantino. It's called the Murder Scene Director's Cut of our first record. Let me see if I can find the second one, because the second one would make sense with what we are talking about currently with the Halloween stuff.
Probably a good job you did miss it this year, because even if you did plan to get it released, vinyl is so delayed at the moment. It probably will be next year before it comes out.
Well, what happened was this was going to be a 3-year project, but this one sold so well. I just thought people were saying, do the second one. And I'm like, okay. And then they were like, do the third one. And it kind of got out of hand. Let's put it this way. It was more work than it should have been, but I'm very proud of it. So the second one is the Haunted Halloween Director's Cut, which is a 3D pumpkin. And on the back is a picture of me and Wednesday playing at the Whiskey. We did that as a thank you to the fans. And the fans really are the ones that made it happen, because doing vinyl is not cheap. Doing 3D vinyl is not cheaper. Doing colored vinyl is not cheaper than that. And then sending that around the world is pretty tough. So,
but some of those are still available, are they?
Yeah, I even cut the price so I could kind of like, hey guys, if you want this, now's the time. Because I quit selling them for a while, and I started noticing that they were selling for like $200 and $300 for the set. So I literally went on there and put one for $40 to crush those guys. Because, you know, Bourbon Crow's about the fans. And that sounds cliche, but we don't overly produce stuff. When we do it, we want it to be special. And yeah, we'll probably pick up on the Crow Fest idea again next year. But if you want it, Bourbon Crow on eBay, it's my direct auction. And there's the only place to get it. And there's a few copies left, though they're going to be history books.
Nice one, man. You was out in Hollywood for a few years. Obviously, they had the Universal Hollywood Horror Nights, but did you have any kind of other celebrations out there? I've been out there one time at Halloween, and Hollywood Boulevard was just like a sea of people just walking up and down. I don't know if you have any particular memories of that.
Well, I can tell you this. West Hollywood is Halloween is like their national holiday. You go down to Santa Monica Boulevard and you will see festivities like you've never seen before. And then you go over to Hollywood Boulevard and it's more of the traditional Hollywood Halloween stuff. And then you go to Halloween Horror Nights or Disney World. You get like LA really goes for it on Halloween. Now, I have to give them credit. Maybe not in the way that the southern towns do it, but they really do celebrate Halloween. I was there for a long time and I've lived there a few different times in my life. And I could tell you out loud and in public, Halloween is more celebrated than any other holiday of the year because everybody leaves at Christmas. Thanksgiving, they go home, but Halloween, they stay there and party.
Very cool. So Santa Monica Boulevard is the place to go if you want to see the extreme Halloween.
You want to see the wildest Halloween stuff. It just depends on what you like. Like I said, Disney has their own thing. Venice Beach even has their own version of Halloween. I just lived right near Santa Monica Boulevard, so I saw it a few years in a row, and it was just, they had parades. It was like Halloween parades and stuff. And it's just, the whole city loves it. They embrace it. And they know a lot of the history of Halloween is in the city. You know, just like the original Halloween house is sitting in Pasadena. The Nightmare on Elm Street house is sitting on Genesee Avenue. But yeah, it's a fun city to go to for Halloween. You could go there and celebrate, like I said, at Disneyland, that kind of like Haunted Mansion themed stuff, all the way to Hollywood Horror Nights. And then if you just want to hit the streets and, you know, drink and have fun, you go to Hollywood Boulevard, Santa Monica, Venice. I think Malibu even has their own little thing. But yeah, LA as a city probably goes for it as much as anywhere.
And how do you celebrate Halloween these days?
The last time I got to celebrate Halloween, like I said, I was in Japan and it was 20,000 people in this little square. But before that, I'm hoping things come back around where we can get out and just, you know, be normal with it. But before that, I would go to parties, dress up parties. You know, my standard go-to is Michael Myers or Jason, just because I'm a gigantic human. I'm like 6'4". So, you know, I can't play, you know, I'm not going to play the leprechaun. That's not going to happen.
And how did your song I'll Be Your Halloween come about?
My wife and I went to see a special screening of Nightmare Before Christmas, and her favorite season is Christmas. My favorite season is Halloween. It was just a quirky song. Like, I know you know about my movie I made, Nita Mosquito. It's just a vibe of songwriting that I do that's just really weird. And so I just took that idea because we were the only people in the theater. So it kind of had a little romantic vibe. And so I made her Sally and I was Jack in the song. Oddly, I recorded that song. The version you hear, I recorded on an iPhone 4 on the voice memos, just as an idea when I got home that night. And I could never replicate the sincerity of it, even in a nice studio. So I just put out the version I recorded on the phone.
Oh, superb, man. It's got that magic in it, which you'll hear every time you listen to it. That's awesome. I love that.
Thank you.
Rayen, thanks ever so much, man. I've loved hearing your Halloween memories.
Oh, yeah, dude. I appreciate you having me on. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. And good luck with the new album.
Yep. Everybody listening, November 7th, look up Rayen Belchere. It's hard to spell, but once you get it, it'll be me. And the new album is called Stages. It's a dark record, but happy Halloween to everybody. Hopefully everybody's safe and get out and trick or treat or do something wild and crazy.
Superb, man.
Have a good night, my friend.
Count the pumpkins till we get to 77. We'll count the pumpkins till we get to 77. I've been trying to get back to this dream. I've been dying to relive all the screams. And I've been trying to get back to this scene. If you'll be my 1031, I'll be your Halloween. If you'll be my 1031, I'll be your Halloween.
Big thank you to Rayen Belchere for coming back onto this show and chat all things Halloween and his current music projects. Very, very cool to catch up again, and I look forward to hearing his new album Stages, which he mentioned during the talk, which will be available on November the 7th. Make sure to follow Rayen on all his social media pages, which you can find by simply searching Rayen Belchere on Google. Rayen is Rayen and Belchere is Belchere. Alright, however you're spending Halloween this year, I hope you have a lot of fun. Please send us a message. What films are you watching? Or some photos of your cool costumes, because I love seeing that stuff. But also, thanks for being a part of this show and all your kind comments, feedbacks, shares, and just general good vibes. It all means a lot, so until next time, please take care, and I'll catch you soon.